Me, but also you. The Pharaoh fast forwards his favorite foreign film, Powder Donut. Okay, what's my line?
The only line I see here on the script is get options based on your budget with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive.
Oh man, that's a tongue twister, huh? I'm sorry, I'm gonna need a few more minutes. Bulbous Walrus, the Bulbous Walrus.
The Name Your Price tool, only from Progressive.
The owl ran afoul of the comatose coxswain.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Welcome, readers. Today on Book Chat, joining me is my buddy read co-host, Classy. We'll be discussing The Echo Wife by Sarah Gailey. Stay tuned. Today's episode is sponsored in part by Audiobooks.com. Audiobooks.com now has 175,000 titles and 1.2 million podcasts. New customers get 3 free audiobooks comprised of 1 premium credit and 2 VIP titles. Use our promo code SHELFADDICTION, spelled as one word, when you sign up at Audiobooks.com. Again, our promo code is SHELFADDICTION. Hey everyone, I am your host, Tamara Ford, and thank you for downloading this month's Buddy Read discussion featured here on the Shelf Addiction podcast. If you're new here, every week we get bookish with book discussions, book reviews, shelf bites, and more. If you're wondering what is a Buddy Read, this is a feature where Classy and I select a thriller or mystery title that we both are interested in. Then we have a candid conversation about that book or audiobook. We even discuss it in our Facebook group, Shelf Addiction Official, during a live chat. So grab a glass of wine, a cocktail, a cup of tea or coffee, whatever your drink of choice is, and settle in for this fun discussion. As always with book chats, there is a spoiler alert in effect, so you've been warned. If you enjoyed today's episode, please support this podcast by sharing it with your book nerd friends or on your favorite social media space. That will really help me out, and I appreciate you for doing it. The uncut video version of this podcast is available now on Patreon. Join us there for exclusive videos, including this podcast after show. If you'd like to support the show in other ways, please consider doing that by supporting our sponsors. By supporting them, you are supporting us. Check out all of the sponsors at shelfaddiction.com/sponsors. If you've read the book or listened to the audiobook and would like to weigh in on this conversation, be sure to join the Facebook group Shelf Addiction Official. I hope to hear your thoughts on this discussion. Links for everything I've mentioned are in the show notes, so let's get going. So we've got a lot to cover today, and we are going to get going. Joining me is the Buddy Read feature co-host, Classy Green. Welcome back, Classy.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Tamara. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. Before we start the discussion for today's show, of course, if you want to watch this show, it's available right now on Patreon. So head on over and click that if you want to see us talk about this book, because I'm sure we have some good stuff to share.
You guys want to see us? Come on.
Yeah.
I know you want to see us.
Yes, we're here. So we're waiting on you. Come on over. Today we are discussing the book The Echo Wife by Sarah Gailey, narrated by Z Sands. And actually, this is the same narrator from last month when we talked about Pretty Little Wife. So if that name sounds familiar, that's why we just said it 4 weeks ago. It was published February 16th, 2021 by Tora Books and Macmillan Audio, respectively. The paperback came in at 256 pages. The unabridged audio came in at 8 hours and 26 minutes. And Classy, why don't you go ahead and share the book synopsis?
Yes, I am reading the synopsis from Scribd.com or Scribd from the app. Sarah Gailey's The Echo Wife is a trippy domestic thriller which takes the extramarital affair trope in some intriguingly weird new directions. That's a quote from Entertainment Weekly. I am embarrassed still by how long it took me to notice. Everything was right there in the open, right there in front of me, but it still took me so long to see the person I had married. It took me so long to hate him. Martine is a genetically cloned replica made from Evelyn Caldwell's award-winning research. She's patient and gentle and obedient. She's everything Evelyn swore she'd never be. And she's having an affair with Evelyn's husband. Now the cheating bastard is dead, and both Caldwell wives have a mess to clean up. Good thing Evelyn Caldwell is used to getting her hands dirty. That is it. That is all.
Okay. All right. So let's just start with why we picked this title.
Okay.
We picked it because it looked interesting. The cover art looked interesting. It definitely had a sci-fi flair to it when we read the synopsis.
It was something different, like we hadn't read in a while. I don't think we've ever had, or maybe one, a little, like I said, the sci-fi thriller, domestic kind of blend.
Mm-hmm.
It was new.
Yeah.
There were some good reviews when we picked it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and we're always, willing to try something different. And it was different, very different.
It was. It wasn't really. Now, some of the tags on Goodreads, the first one that pops up is science fiction, obviously, followed by thriller, followed by fiction, then mystery, etc. And once I got going into this book, it just felt like I was reading not a thriller, it didn't even feel suspenseful to me. It just felt like I was reading, what is the phrase I'm looking for here? Like how a scientist
like a clinical, magazine.
I'm following the steps. I'm following the proper steps of what happens after a certain action happens.
Yes.
So it read
procedures and
it read like, instead of me connecting with these characters at all, it was reading like a manual.
Yep. A scientific manual.
Yeah.
What they call that, AMA, or I can't remember the medical, journal that it was. It was very clinical to me. It was very dry.
Yeah.
At first I was like, okay, I get it. She's a scientist. I get, the beginning I was okay with, because she's setting up the world. She's building her I hate to call it world building, but she's building the scene. She's setting it up for us. She's presenting what's about to happen. So I was okay with the dryness at first. And you know how I am with slow burns. But then it was just like, am I watching paint dry? It
felt like it.
It did. And the thing is, this book was only 256 pages.
Yeah,
and it felt like it was 400 pages. Yes. And we did the audio, people. We always only do the audios here. But it felt like it was 400 pages. That's how boring it was.
This whole book was from Evelyn's point of view, the scientist's point of view.
Yes.
It was very clear that it was from a scientist's point of view. Mm-hmm. Everything she felt about everything was very clinical. She rarely showed an emotion, and that made it harder to digest the book for me.
Well, and the emotions that she did show was fury. She was mad at everything. She was clenching her fist and biting the inside of her, her lip. And she was a very angry woman. And I mean, after we learned about her background, but I won't say, it was almost that pent up anger that she didn't know how to release, because as a child, and, we learned that she had to hold a lot of that in. And it seems like once she became an adult, she didn't know how to tame it, I guess you want to say, is maybe the right word.
I mean, honestly, she did grow up in an abusive house for the most part till her father disappeared, quote unquote. We'll get into more about that later. But I do feel like it's a whole, she had the nature and the nurture. I think that's just a part of her personality, because even as it was coming across with Martine interacting with her, as Martine started to break away from the clone-like behavior, some of her own behavior she was seeing in Martine. So definitely it was, that's a part of her DNA, how she acts, as well as how she grew up and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was interesting to see. You know,
Yeah.
like I said, there are some interesting parts, but overall the book was very dry, very clinical. I felt like, like at one point when she talked about her assistant, Saeed, putting on the gloves. And I mean, she told us everything to the point of, she made him put on double gloves so it was easier to take off gloves. It was just some things I could have done without, especially with the clinical part. And then I think, after you said it was 256 pages, or I read that it was 200, I'm just like, so if we took out all of the medical jargon, what was left of the story?
Not a lot. Not a lot. And let me just say, we're going to jump right on all the way. And you guys, you know how we do with spoilers. So you've been warned. So Martine's ex-husband is killed by the clone. And her reaction to that is, now this was surprising, but not really surprising. It was like, but not entirely surprised by it. Her reaction was, let's create another one. Well, actually, it was more the clone's idea to create another clone, which was strange in itself.
Right.
But she went along and they recreated her ex-husband, which was a lot of time spent explaining how they were doing it, how they were like forming his memories, how they were cutting his skin and breaking his bones to make to match past injuries.
Right.
A lot of detail about the cloning process, a lot of questioning about why the clones don't do this, don't do that. It was very sciencey all throughout from beginning to end. And obviously the clones were important. And then it comes up again when we find out her husband. Okay, so this was the twist that you know immediately once you start reading the book, but it's not mentioned in the synopsis. So her actual husband created Martine. Evelyn didn't do it. Her husband stole her work and created Martine with her own damn assistant helping him. It's a lot.
But we got to go
stuff.
back because Evelyn Saeed was Nathan's assistant originally, and Evelyn stole him from Nathan. So it was, they had this
stupid. They had an I hate you relationship. They hated really each other.
They did, and I'm like, when were you guys ever in love? And I believe it probably, now that I say it out loud, there was a time when there was some love, but it seemed like when she began to outshine him, it became a little contentious, between each other. And then when she took the assistant, that was just like, oh, okay. Now,
that was definitely really clear, I think, because she's Evelyn has stated, well, we were great. We were partners. It was great until, I was critiquing his work. His work is a little sloppy,
Right. Yeah. Because he didn't question his, if he liked the results, he never questioned his results. He always, if they were good, okay, they're good. So a good scientist is going to always, according to her and from, records, you should do that. You should always question, because there's always that little percentage of error. So, and we did see where that came into play, that percentage of error that he did not consider.
Yeah.
So, I think he was, because she was he more scholarly and she was more medical? Was he more into like the higher ed kind of side of,
Yeah. Okay. I think he was a college professor or something like that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, this dude, he messed up 13 times. So you guys, so at the end of this thing, oh my God. Okay. So at the end of this thing, the clone, Martine, is digging around in the backyard trying to plant some trees or some mess.
Some
And
saplings, yes.
digs up 13 other clones in different stages of disarray from over the years of him, a couple of years of him trying to accomplish this.
Right. And he named each one with
did.
the beginning of the alphabet.
Yeah.
So everything from Anna to Layla to Martine. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah. So he was sick in the head. He really wanted Evelyn to be his version of Evelyn. Like, I think he liked the idea of her, but not actually her. So
right. She was too strong-willed. He wanted someone a little more docile, a little, and she didn't want to have children. Which was another, key factor. She had became pregnant and aborted the child. And that angered him. But, it angered him. But then I think, didn't he propose after that?
He did. He came back home and he didn't even actually propose. He just put the ring on the bedside table.
Right.
And walked into the shower, and then she picks it up and puts it on her finger. I'm like, what kind of proposal is that? After you just have a full-on argument about aborting a kid without telling him.
Right. That's something we need to talk about.
Yeah. So, oh my God.
Yeah.
So how in the heck do you go about getting pregnant, talking about it with your husband, and then deciding to just go?
It wasn't even your husband yet.
Right. Boyfriend, live-in boyfriend. Yeah. They were together. They lived together.
Right.
Live-in boyfriend. And then suddenly you're just going to go have an abortion, which your body, you're right. But you don't have a discussion. You don't tell him what you're going to do. This fool comes skipping in the house like, hey, I got a job. I got a better job. I can take you and the baby. And she like, what baby? He was so mad. Yeah. I think according to the book, it seemed like she was waiting on him to like punch her lights out or something.
Right. She was waiting for like the choking, like,
yes. It didn't happen.
Right. Yeah.
But he walked out. He's like, oh my God. How does one do that? I just don't understand how you don't have a conversation.
She was very, her affect was very, like she had no emotions. Yeah. And when you, in the story, the author describes her as being like, she was angry because she was angry at her coworkers because nobody noticed that she was going through a divorce and that she was sad. But in the meantime, if they did ask her, why are you sad? She'd have been pissed off. So it was just like, okay. So, again, that nurture and nature, how she was raised, it was like she had to kind of like hold in her emotions. And her dad told her, never apologize for anything. You look weak. And so, I mean, I kind of got some of her actions, but I had a hard time connecting with her or even caring about her, which I think made it even more difficult for me to like this story. Because even if I don't like, don't care for you or connect, I can still like the story. But this was just like, it was hard. It was very hard to connect.
I mean, as someone who's so smart, and I've heard this before about ultra smart people, she does not know how to feel empathy. And that was clear. She felt no empathy toward her husband, toward her clone. It was very difficult for her to show Martine. When she found herself acting nice to Martine, she was shocked and didn't know how to deal with the fact that she wasn't cussing this girl out all the time. You know what I mean? It's like,
right. Yeah. Like that description of how Martine, her patience with the baby and her emotions, you could feel Evelyn kind of like, ooh, what is all that about? and that's me. That's a clone of me, and she's doing this. Ugh.
Yeah.
You know, it was just, you could just tell it that it just irked her to see her clone could have those kind of emotions. I think, that was the thing. It was like, here's my clone, and she has emotions. Ugh. No,
But you know what,
that's not
though?
me.
I feel like that could have been Evelyn had she grown
Mhm.
up in a different house.
Yep.
Because like I said earlier, Martine still knew how to cut at her. You know what I'm saying? She still had
Ooh.
that attitude from her mother. She still
Yep.
had those traits, but
Yep.
she also was able to be patient and
Yeah.
kind. And those were things that she might have had if she had grown up in a different house.
Right. Yeah. Oh, Martine could cut, man. She was quick with it, man. She was like, she was,
Yeah, she was.
and Evelyn would be like, did she just cut me? I'm not sure. I think I just got cut.
Yeah.
And then, and then all of a sudden, Martine would go back into her
docile mode.
Pleasantville kind of, what's the one with Stepford wife kind of syndrome. But she cut her quick.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, you didn't think that was going to rise up. But like you said, if you're taking DNA from somebody, something's got to kind of rear its ugly head. Yeah.
Yes. And we talk about that again later in the book, because later, when Martine finds all those bodies in the backyard, she is now living with the clone husband, not the guy who killed those women, but the clone husband. And Martine is ready to kill his ass. She is ready to take him out like he did the deed. And Evelyn has to say, hold on now, hold on.
Yeah.
This is not
an interesting part.
Yeah. So here we go again. But then Martine said, but part of that is in him. It's in him. He is that DNA. So he didn't physically do it, but
it's in his it's in his blood.
It's in his blood.
It's basically in his blood.
And we see that because, okay, so you guys, so after this happens, Evelyn talks Martine into faking her death, basically. They dig up one of the clones that has not decomposed yet, which is another sciencey thing.
Yeah.
And they set her up like she killed herself, and Martine had to leave the house. But we have not mentioned yet, I know Classy mentioned a baby earlier, but we didn't say that Martine had a baby and she wasn't supposed to be able to get pregnant. So he was breaking rules creating her so she could get pregnant. So she had to leave this baby there to leave.
Girl, I stopped when Evelyn told her she had to leave the baby. I was like,
she had, I mean, how else? How else?
Yeah, I know. But that woman loved, not just that she was a mother, but she had to leave the baby to make the story believable.
Yeah.
But man, woo.
Yeah. So after all of that, Evelyn knew, and she was right. He created you against the laws. So he's not going to report you dead. He's going to bury you. He's going to try to hide it. Mm-hmm. And she knew he would come to her eventually. But when he did, he lied about how long she was gone, how she quote unquote died. He lied. He's a liar.
Yeah, back up. Because remember, Evelyn didn't think. And that was the another twist or funny thing, that Evelyn didn't think the new Nathan,
the clone, would do that.
Yeah, it would be like, no, because we didn't condition him that way. Here's the clone telling her, look, bitch, I know what I know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a clone. And not just that, she also reveals the real Nathan. He didn't just want to kill me. He wanted to kill you, Evelyn.
The real wife, the original wife.
Yeah. And she did find some of his diary stuff about, well, now what do I have to do with? Because basically, once he got the Evelyn that he wanted out of the clones, he had to get rid of the real Evelyn.
Yeah, that was the plan.
Whew. Yeah.
That was the plan.
But she didn't believe it. She didn't believe that this Nathan would
No.
be that. No, he's not like that. We didn't condition him.
Well, the
Okay.
whole time, which is ironic because the entire book, she's questioning how Martine is going against things that she knows Nathan trained into her or took out of her.
Mm-hmm.
So she's questioning how. But it was weird. She was able to break through some things and not other things. For example, Martine could never go to sleep before 9:30 p.m.
Right.
And she could never sleep past a certain time in the morning.
Right. Like 6. Right. She couldn't.
Yeah. So she was conditioned to only like a dang on robot that you put on the charger at night. You know what I'm saying? Like
Her little internal clock. Yeah.
Yeah. So he
and I
wanted
mean
her
that's more of a
awake.
nurture kind of. Yeah. That's
no matter how tired she was. Remember, you guys, she was pregnant. No matter how tired she was, no matter how much she worked, she couldn't take a nap. She couldn't go to sleep early, couldn't sleep in, she couldn't nap. She was just there. So it's like
awake for like 14 hours or something, right? I think I remember hearing like something about 14-hour time periods or whatever. So yeah, it was, I mean, honestly, I felt like there were some plot holes. I never wrote them down, but I did, there were some things that I questioned, like how,
some things just didn't line up. No. So, like I said, Martine able to do one thing, but not able to do others. Same for her husband, I mean, there were just, oh gosh.
Yeah, there were some things, especially like mother things. For example, which I believe is probably something that Evelyn had done before, which showed up in Martine when it came time for Evelyn, not Evelyn, but Martine started bleeding and she went to the gynecologist or the obstetrician. Yeah, that's the name, right? Obstetrician. Been a long time.
The OB.
Yeah, the OB. Thank you. The OB. That's easier. OB-GYN. And, she said, I had never been to a doctor while pregnant. But when it was time to put her feet in those stirrups, she did it with ease. And Evelyn questioned that. And I was like, that was a little strange. But now later on in the story, that could have been something, maybe muscle memory, maybe, I don't know, something.
It was from her husband and doing things to her to try to get her pregnant and probably doing, you know what I mean? Probably treating her.
I didn't think about that. And checking because they had tried a couple of times, I think she said. Yeah, that is true.
They were actively trying to get pregnant. And that's why she kept thinking she wanted that baby, because that was a part of the programming that he did to her.
Right. Because that's what she was made for.
Yeah. So she definitely has been, looked over in that way because she knew what to do. That's what I got from it. Like, oh, the husband was doing that. That's why she was kind of like disgusted almost.
Okay. I didn't think about that. Didn't think about that at all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you guys, you know what? This is a great time for us to take a quick break. Here's some commercials. Check out the merch store. When we come back, we're going to finish our conversation. We're going to rate the book. And I want to talk about the audiobook version for a little while. So we're going to do that as well. So we'll be right back.
Yes.
Today's episode is sponsored in part by audiobooks.com. Audiobooks.com now has 175,000 titles and 1.2 million podcasts. New customers get 3 free audiobooks comprised of 1 premium credit and 2 VIP titles. Use our promo code Shelf Addiction, spelled as one word, when you sign up at audiobooks.com. Again, our promo code is Shelf Addiction. All right, welcome back, guys. Okay, we're going to finish out our conversation, and we're going to just, I guess, pick up with, we were talking about some plot holes a minute ago, and we were talking about, I don't know, it's a lot of stuff going on in this book, you guys. Like, honestly, for it to be such a slow-paced book, there was a lot of information.
Overload.
Yeah.
Overload.
And I think that's the only thing that kept me going, was that I guess I wanted to know what the next step would be, because there was no mystery. We know what happened. There wasn't a mystery.
Right.
There wasn't really a thriller, because no one was coming for anybody. Nobody was, I mean, I honestly could not understand how these women just said, oh, he is on a vacation. Oh, he got in an accident. He was gone for almost 2 months. And not one person came and knocked on that man's door or insisted to talk to him. Not one person.
Nope. Not his job.
No.
You know, they said he didn't have that many friends, but still, even your job would be concerned.
Yeah, like it was not
gone.
I couldn't suspend disbelief for that. Like, he was gone for a long time.
Yeah.
And it seemed like, oh, he's just going to go off and be in the woods for 45 days or what?
He was getting his mind. He was getting his mind clear from the divorce. Isn't that what he said? And I'm like, okay, if that's what you want to, you know.
I mean, I guess maybe he had the days saved up. I don't know. Maybe.
Right. That's his PTO. He do what he wants with it.
Yeah. Something. Because I'm like, that is crazy.
Apparently you have some kind of friends because you had to tell them that story. But he didn't have any close friends. Who knows, girl? It was, again, some plot holes. And for it to be 256 pages, we were given a lot of medical jargon, a lot of scientific lab stuff. I would have enjoyed probably more of some background story with Saeed, you know, because Saeed was stealing equipment, but come to find out he was stealing equipment and selling it, I believe, to Nathan. I mean, granted, some of it, yeah. Saeed was stealing equipment and, you know, that was his side hustle because he had college loans to pay off.
Yeah.
But, you know, in the end, the clone, you know, they faked Martine's death. Evelyn took her home with her to live. She hid her out there. Nathan didn't know how to take it. I don't know nothing about taking care of no babies, Miss. You know, he came over to Evelyn's house and said, you know what, Evelyn, she's dead.
He wanted a baby as long as he had someone to take care of it.
Take care of that baby. But he told Evelyn that Martine had died because of a heart condition a month ago.
So he lied about that. Yeah, he lied about the timing and her manner of death.
Right. And then Evelyn thought to herself, he is who he said he was. What they say, when somebody shows you who they are, you better believe them. You better believe him. And he showed his ass. And
she's just looking at him all those nasties out. She didn't get all the gross things out about him.
No, all that conditioning didn't help.
Well, you know, she said she wanted to leave him as he was, but just take out the worst stuff. Like, she even used an example. She says he's like a friend you haven't seen since high school. You know, they seem the same, but they're a little different. So she didn't want him coming back with a new attitude and you know what I mean? Because people would know something was wrong with him.
Right.
So she had to leave some of the dirt on him, quote unquote, you know.
Yeah. But I think too, you know, the more we kind of talk about this with nature and nurture, some of that you can't take away. I think, you know, some of the lie, like, how do you take lying out of somebody? You know, that ability just, yeah. You know, I could see, because she was kind of I think she was more of trying to protect Martine from the violent side of Nathan. But Martine said she didn't see the violent side. Well, yeah, you did, because he said he was going to kill somebody. That's violent, Martine. Just because he didn't, you know, decide to choke you during an argument. That does, you know, he just didn't show that side. But when he wanted to kill you and tell you he was going to kill Evelyn, that's violent. But yeah, so he showed.
And remember, she put in a kill switch for that.
Yeah.
She said, in case this happens, and we did not cut it off.
Yeah. And Martine remembered that too. She was like,
she was ready to use
remember
it.
when? Remember when you said, let's kill his ass? Basically, she wanted him dead. She had no qualms.
Which
she
is
didn't
crazy.
think about
like, again, how are you going to answer where this fool is? What are you going to say? Well, I guess they're going to say he just died of natural causes, because supposedly that's what the kill switch should do. I guess just call the police and say, oh, I don't know what happened to him.
Yep. Found him dead on the floor. I came over. Right. And I mean, the weird thing is that they would be together. There would be times where they'd be together and nobody would notice or even question this, because this woman didn't have a twin she didn't have a twin. And it's like, how do you go in the, I don't even want to go further into that.
No,
but anyway, it would, again, some plot holes. Mm-hmm. But in the end, he asked Evelyn, can she help raise Violet? Because he didn't know nothing about even holding the baby right. I'm like, were you that kind of dad? Didn't know how to hold the baby right? So, Evelyn decides, you know what? I'll take care of the baby, because she had Martine, and she knew that would be something that would keep Martine happy, because I bet you Martine was driving her crazy. She had to have been. You took my baby. That woman probably was crying her eyes out nightly, driving. Yeah. And I know that probably drove Evelyn crazy.
Yeah, the author kind of wrote in there she was depressed. It seemed like she was depressed.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's something like Evelyn should have known. You can't shake that out of her. This woman just gave birth. I can't remember how old the baby was. She wasn't that much older, because she was still nursing her. Mm-hmm. You just ripped the child basically out of her life. So she is going to be depressed. And so Evelyn decides, you know what? Cool. I'll take care of the baby. But she said, I'll take her up to this, cabin again while I'm working on my scientific work. I'm going to go in the woods, which was basically her old home that she grew up in, that she was supposed to inherit. She calls her mother and says, "Ma, I need the house." Mom ships her the keys. And she ships basically Martine up there. And every weekend?
Yeah, so they just traded off the baby with her. Yep. And like every other week she has the baby.
Yeah. But the trade-off was that, what was it again? Martine had to be her lab assistant, right?
Yeah. She didn't mind, because she was a good lab assistant.
Shit, she was her.
She was her.
Yeah.
She learned quickly.
Yes. So then in the end, I felt like, how in our lives, in our daily lives, we always say, I need a clone. I can't do all this. I need a clone. Evelyn got what all women, Evelyn basically got what all women asked for. Mm-hmm. Herself cloned.
She did. She got that.
I mean, because Martine cooked, Martine cleaned, Martine did all the shit Evelyn didn't want to do. Mm-hmm. All Evelyn had to do was do her work, which is what she loved. She loved being in the lab, figuring shit out. And here's her clone over there doing all the wifely or the homely duties, that are needed. I was like,
I mean, she's even sliding into her father's role. I have my office. Martine can come in here once a week and ask me questions the same way her father did. But she doesn't need a timer though, because she's not that mean.
I was like, you still are.
Yeah.
You really are. Because she basically said, snap out of it. You're not going to be like, I was like, uh-oh. There go her dad rising up in her. And she even mentioned it before that, I am part dad, part mom. Whew, yeah, because mom was able to kind of kill without.
Her mother killed her father and buried her in the back, because when Martine, she has a green thumb, she said, you can do what you want in this backyard, but don't go back there. Don't go past this part. in the yard.
Yes. And I was like, okay, I see this full circle here.
Yeah.
Martine has the green thumb.
I mean,
Evelyn
honestly, it's stupid. Like, Evelyn is a murderer too. I feel like if you can kill okay, yes, she sees them as specimens, but she is killing full grown human beings, bodies with blood circulating, with a brain that can talk. She's like killing them, basically, disposing of them if they are damaged or something is wrong with them. I don't understand how she has no problem pulling the plug on these specimens, but for some reason her ex's clone, she couldn't pull the plug on him.
Yeah.
Like, why not?
She had a connection with the other people. She didn't have a connection. You know how if you ever you do watch television and the doctors, and they always say you kind of try and take that connection out, like when it's time to tell somebody that somebody has passed, so you don't get that emotional connection. And that's probably in this story. She didn't have an emotional connection to her lab or her specimens or whatever. They were research.
Well, Nathan, she was not calling her husband by his name until the very last moment. She was calling him K and whatever his number was. Yes.
Yep. His little sequence numbers.
Right. So I don't know. It just seems weird because.
Oh, very weird.
Especially because she knows Nathan. She knows, he's a clone of a murderer. It was not okay for Nathan to kill his mistakes, but it's okay for you to kill all your mistakes.
Yep.
And I don't understand.
Martine called her out on it. Martine called her out on it too.
The last straw for her was finding out that she herself was going to be God. Until then, I don't think she really put that much weight in it, I guess, until she realized, he's going to kill my ass too. Okay.
Yeah.
But for that, she should have gotten rid of the clone. She should have pulled the kill switch, I feel. Because guess what? They could have took the baby and left, and no one would fucking know the difference.
Nope, not at all. Yeah. Case solved.
So I don't know. It was like, so some stuff could have been taken out. But
when you think about it, it was 256 pages. What would he have?
This should have been like a short story or something. It should.
There really was no plot. Did you even feel like there was a plot?
No, there wasn't. But that's what I was saying earlier. There's no mystery. There's no thriller. We're just reading about what happens after an event. You know what I mean? Step by step. We're not. She's
just pushing the story along, and it was a hard push. It was like rolling up a big ass boulder up a hill, because I was just like,
it was clunky.
How many percent? How much percent? Wow.
Yeah. I mean, about a woman who is hard to relate to for a lot of us. We couldn't I didn't feel any type of empathy for her at all. I couldn't relate at all. And trying to make her have like this closeness with her assistant who ended up lying to her wasn't even like, it didn't bother me. I'm like, well.
Yeah. And she felt like he was her only friend. And I was like, damn. And I think he was on her only friend because he lasted that long. But guess what? He only lasted that long because he was stealing shit. If he wasn't stealing shit, he probably would have been gone sooner than that. I don't think
that she saw him as a friend. I think she saw him as someone she could count on in her space that she considered more important than her home, which was her lab.
Yeah.
So she began to rely on him. And she was explaining how she didn't even have to watch him do stuff anymore. She could just assign him tasks and he would just do it. So she started relying on him in a way that she was not able to reach in other assistants, because she was a hard person to work for, and she would run through those assistants like water.
Yep. She was cruel. She was a hard boss.
Yeah.
And she knew it. It almost was like it was a test. Like, okay, I'm just going to be as hard as I can be. Let's see who will last. And I'm like, dang.
Look,
Whew. But
and another plot
but I've
hole
known
though.
those type of people. I've seen those type of people. I've worked with those type of people.
Well, I think
Scientists
there
too.
was another plot hole with the assistant. So yes, he left and he wrote her a note basically saying, "You don't tell, I won't tell. You gonna write me a recommendation, I'll keep my mouth shut, we're good." To me,
Right.
that just seems like a liability. That
Mm-hmm.
doesn't seem like something that would stick.
No. Any good criminal. I mean, one of the stories we read, what was it with S.A. Cosby? They had to knock somebody off. The one guy who talked too much. Oh, that's the lab. No, he's going to talk. He's got to go. Yeah. For one, you stole equipment. Two, you helped me unethically build a person. Wait, two, you helped Nathan create Martine, one unethical. Then you helped me make another Nathan, two unethical things.
Yeah.
Now, you know too much.
Yeah, he knows a lot. And, she's so concerned about the stuff coming out to ruin her credibility.
Yep. And all her research money. And yep.
Yeah. So
he
now
ruined her.
Oh, yeah. So now it seems like she's out of the clone making business, but she's into research about clones' lifespans, like how their bodies slowly, they don't degrade in the same way as humans. It seems like she was more concerned with that now than actually making clones anymore.
Yeah. Right. After she saw how the bodies, Layla survived. Because she survived what? 4 years? Basically, because she was 2 years.
Layla was in the ground for 2 years. Because it only takes 2 months to make a clone.
Right. But didn't she say Layla, wait, so Martine was 2 years old, basically.
Right. So Layla has been in the ground for 2 years.
Okay. Gotcha.
So she goes in the ground and then he spends 2 months making a new clone, or he starts the process.
Yeah, because later, I don't know, your teeth were crooked. I don't know what the hell.
Yeah, we don't know why.
No.
Right. But he kept the folders on every one of those. That's how they found out really, what he was doing. But, so yeah, apparently Layla, she had a bag over her head and her face essentially looked normal. She said her body, after they cleaned the body off, which was another section that was way too long. We did not need to hear about you flipping a dead body into a tub, cleaning off the dead, washing the hair flopping around. Like, oh my God.
Cleaning her mouth out.
Cleaning her mouth out. It was just too
I was just like
too much.
And then Martine gets in there and holds her head like a baby. Because Martine's a mom. She knows how to do this thing. It's just like, you're killing me, Sarah. You really are.
I mean, but I could visualize.
I was like, and what percent am I at now?
No,
what percent?
I could visualize it. Like, she's talking about using the shower hose to spray the dirt out of her teeth and it wasn't working. And she's like, do you have a toothbrush? I'm like, oh my God, girl. That's too much.
We got to clean her up to make her look like you.
Yeah, we got to use the shampoo and the soap and put her in your clothes and then
hang her.
Make her look like she hung herself.
Mm-hmm. The premise of the story was good. It was a good premise, good idea. Yeah. But the follow through, she didn't. Yeah, she lost me. It was not good.
Yeah. So I would like to talk about the audiobook a little bit.
Yes.
Like I said, we just got finished listening to this same narrator last month. And last month, I know I listened at a 1.5. That's usually my regular cadence nowadays. It's hard for me to go less than that. But this one, I had to speed it up a little more. I was actually at 1.8. After about 50%, I'm like, I need this to go faster. It's too slow. And I just upped the 1.8. What about you?
Yeah.
How did you do with listening?
Same. I did the same.
Okay.
I tried 1.2, I tried 1.5, and I increased it. And I felt like after we've listened to this author before, that the author was going at the pace of the story. You know what I mean? She followed the cadence of this story, and this story was clinical. It was slow. It was, it's like you can't really go too quick through all the medical procedurals of tissue dissection and blah 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 blah. You can't speed through that. So I felt like she was doing her job. But guess what? I need you to speed it up now. So I sped it up to 1.8. Nothing against Zan or Z. I can't remember how to Z Sands. Nothing against her because, like I said, we read her last month and loved her. Had no problem with her. I do felt like she did exude emotion in the story. You could tell her fury when she would be upset with Martine and even with her assistant. So I did feel that. But again, the story was slow as hell, and the narrator was just doing what she does.
That
for this story.
Kind of feel like even a good narrator sometimes can't save an audiobook. Like if the story, and that shows you how the balance needs to be there. So yes, a good narrator can add some sparkle, a little shine to the story, but the story itself needs to be
sparkly.
It needs to have a good foundation, right? You can only work with what you are given. So even though the narrator was, I didn't have any problems with her per se, she did not make the book more enjoyable to me.
No, it's like, how do you make medical procedural exciting? Because that's what the majority of this book was. Medical, scientifical, whatever, procedural. How do you make that? It's like, how do you make that sexy? You can't. You cannot. And she did her best. She did her best, like with the emotions of Martine. When Martine, like you said, remember we would see her, those emotions kind of rise up in Martine. She did a great job of us feeling that. But the majority of this book was clinical. So
it was.
Yeah.
So there you go. And I hope we were able to explain this book to you guys. And I know we didn't go plot point by plot point, but I hope we talked about it in a way that you understand what was happening because, we're kind of all over the place as we do, at book club. You kind of jet all over the place, but
no, this story really didn't have a plot. It was just we cut the tissue, we covered up the tissue with some liquid Band-Aid, and we watched it cure over until it got soft, and then we broke his clavicle and
scraping his skin so he has a bruise. It was a lot, and it was just too much. Like some of the stuff, it was, if you're have a weak stomach and you don't really like medical things like that, it was a little some of it was a little intense. I'm like, oh goodness,
because I mean they're cadavers. They are basically cadavers, and she's breaking bones and she's pulling back tissue and cutting, and and blood is oozing, and so
it's like I felt like I could have been watching like a medical show or something. Watching someone do surgery or something like that.
Yep. So
yeah. All right, let's rate this thing. Let's rate The Echo Wife by Sarah Gailey. You go first, Classy.
It's like I want to give it a 3 because of the premise of the book, but I can't. I'm going to go 2. Okay. I really want it, but I can't. I have to go 2. It was painful.
It was painful.
Yeah, it was painful for me. So a 2 it is.
I think the best part about the book is that it was 256 pages. Yeah, I know. And when I was done, initially, I wanted to give the book a 3. I wanted to do it, but I didn't do it. I just said, I'm not ready to give this book a 3. So it was entertaining enough to talk about because some of the things that were going on in the book were bananas. Like some of the stuff was like so far beyond suspension of disbelief. Like no way on this earth.
Right.
But it was still very bulky for something so short. Very heavy-handed with the
medical terminology. I mean, she bonked our heads over this. And granted, I get the sci-fi thing and I get the liberties, but I mean, they're cloning to this, it does exist. And I had a hard time believing everything she kind of mentioned in the cloning process was true. I didn't look it up. She could have did her research. I don't know. But even if it was true, I didn't buy it. Yeah. And if I didn't buy it as a reader, it says a lot.
Yeah. It was definitely a dark book as well. So I don't know. With that said, I think I will settle on it too. I was really wanting to do the 3, but it's a 2. Yeah. Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah,
it is what it is.
I know. Right, because it's like you want to give it because of the originality. I mean, and something else could be out there like this. I haven't read it, but she didn't bring it for me. Mm-hmm. So 2 it is.
2 it is.
Yep.
All right. And we are done with this book. We're going to put another one to rest.
We wash our hands of this.
Yes. And it's time to move on. We're going to share what our next book is. Our next book is called The Hunting Wives by May Cobb. And so we are reading that next.
More wives doing crazy stuff.
Crazy stuff. That's what it sounds like anyway. And I mean, the hype is real. This is another one that's gotten a good amount of hype on social media. The publicists are doing their jobs. So we will see if The Hunting Wives lives up to the hype.
Yes.
Read along with us. Join us on Facebook. Talk about it with us. And do all the things,
Yes, we are always here to see what all the hype is about. Yes. And we're not afraid to say, nope.
We will poke some holes in that story. We will shoot it down if it's bad, but we will praise it if it's good too. We are fair.
Yes, we are.
So there's that.
Yes,
all right, guys. Thank you so much for listening. If you're listening to my voice right now, I really appreciate you for listening all the way to the end of this podcast. We had a great time today, and we look forward to chatting with you in the next Buddy Reads discussion. Talk to you guys soon. Take care of yourselves. If you enjoyed today's episode and would like to show your support, there are a few things you can do. Head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a positive 5-star review, or like this episode on your favorite podcast player. It seems so simple, but it really helps me out. You can share this podcast with other book nerd friends or on your favorite social media space. You can also join the Shelf Addiction Patreon family. For as little as $2 a month, you will help us produce even more awesome content for your ears. You can also consider joining the Shelf Addiction official Facebook group, where we talk all things bookish and more in a safe space. The Shelf Addiction podcast is a part of the Nerdy Maven network. You can also reach us via email at info@shelfaddiction.com. Thank you for listening.
Me, but also you. The Pharaoh fast forwards his favorite foreign film, Powder Donut. Okay, what's my line?
The only line I see here on the script is get options based on your budget with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive.
Oh man, that's a tongue twister, huh? I'm sorry, I'm gonna need a few more minutes. Bulbous Walrus, the Bulbous Walrus.
The Name Your Price tool, only from Progressive.
The owl ran afoul of the comatose coxswain.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.